ways it was good because you got a wide range of the fans were very diverse from all over the world, and that was cool. But and those fans, the ones who were excited about it outside the stadium, they were typical fans. They were very excited to be there. But when you get inside, it just like they always say, it's like being in a library. And I was talking to it with an Arsenal fan who a very ardent supporter, and he said, and I told him I was going to the game, and he said, "Well, did you bring a pillow?"
I couldn't believe he said that.
Yeah, he was, so he was disgusted by how things have changed too, as are a lot of supporters. But it's still a good feel inside. I mean, people are excited. It's like being at a sporting event anywhere. The people are excited to see what happens. But it is more of a corporate feel at Emirates. In fact, and the other things I noticed there were a few more things available in the concession stands. You could get pizza, and there seemed to be more team merchandise areas available for them to take your money at.
Yeah. And, Arsenal, interestingly, signed a 25-year deal with their caterers, so they've got them for years now.
Wow.
So, yeah.
It's interesting. I kind of liken it to when I heard about the Liverpool-Everton derbies and whatnot, that the stadiums are only a half mile apart, and the Everton fans would always joke that the Liverpool fans would fly home after the game. So I kind of get the same sense of feeling, between Spurs being a little more white collar, blue collar, working class, whereas Emirates is more white collar esque. Period. And it translates into the atmosphere inside the stadium. Am I totally incorrect in thinking that?
I would say that, yeah. At Spurs, it seemed like more this was these people were from the community. Well, obviously I've ran into several people who were from Norway and Sweden there as well. I just felt like I was more in a community there. Also, the same at West Ham. Whereas at Arsenal, it was like, okay, well, people are coming in from a lot of other places.
Right.
And
can I just say something in Arsenal's defence in a minute?
What?
I think we just need to be really careful here, because our stadium's 36,400. Their stadium is 60,000. For me, it's more of a supply and demand issue.
Yeah.
So, White Hart Lane, you are going to get more season ticket holders, more members, less going on general sale, to be utterly honest with you, than you are at Arsenal. So if I'm a tourist and I want to see Premier League football, I'm going to pick up a ticket far more easily at the Emirates than I am at White Hart Lane. So I'm therefore going to end up at the Emirates. And that dilutes that whole demographic of the noisy traditional fan base. We just need to be kind of careful. Because if we're also building a stadium that is rumored to be 61,000, then there are going to be walk-up sales there as well. And we just kind of don't. I agree with you that the atmosphere at the Emirates is not what it could be. But I think there are different factors for that when you're comparing it to somewhere like White Hart Lane. So that's the one thing that I will say. Let's just see how we get on in a few years' time.
Well, how do we work around that? How do we prevent what they've created there?
2 for 1.
Well, exactly. Pricing structure is absolutely key for me, to be utterly honest. The reason that your demographic is changing so much in the English Premier League is that most traditional fans are now priced out.
Yeah.
It's incredibly expensive. I mean, at the Trust, we're doing an awful lot of coalition campaigning with trusts across the country and with the Football Supporters Federation particularly, to try and drive down ticket pricing, the headline price. So that's a big issue. The pricing structure will be absolutely key, and that's something that we're already talking to the club about.
Kat, was there a march last week?
Yes, there was.
Yeah, tell us about that.
So last Thursday was the Premier League shareholders' March meeting. So that's like the 20 Daniel Levy's, basically, in a posh hotel off Piccadilly. So they meet kind of once every 8 weeks with the Premier League bigwigs, so Richard Scudamore and that kind of level of people. So the Football Supporters Federation targeted that meeting to do a demo, to get some media behind it, which is about redistribution of television wealth. So you guys may or may not be aware that the latest broadcast deal for domestic TV rights over here was settled a couple of weeks ago at £5.14 billion.
Yeah,
£5.14 billion. So every single match is worth £10.4 million. So it's just swilling in money, whereas the fans have been asked to pay more and more and more. Our ticket prices have gone up on average 700% in 15 years.
Yeah.
And my wages haven't gone up 700%. So, do you know what I mean? So it's a big issue for an awful lot of people. So it's all about trying to cascade that wealth down the football pyramid to support grassroots as well. So there was a little bit of success on the back of that. The Premier League have come out and agreed to put £1 billion aside for 5 various good causes, one of which includes match-day supporters, match-going supporters. We don't know the exact breakdown of that billion yet, because the parachute payments for clubs that get relegated from the Premier League to Champions League comes out of that actual pot as well. So we need to wait for more detail first. But, the signs are promising that at least fans have been recognised, at least they're on that agenda now.
So, Katrina, I had a question for you from the Facebook page from the Trusted. I don't know if you shared it or someone else on the board, but there was the article that was in The Guardian regarding a manifesto on how to change based on all that money, and I think there were 11 talking points. Some of them are rather objective, but again, it does talk to revolutionizing football and the modern game, and I know it is all about money now, and it is very hard for the average person to make that change, but there were some very good talking points in there. Again, restructuring the FA, restructuring FIFA, which that's well out of our scope, but it definitely addresses safe standing, fair ticket prices, pay the living wage. It says do the unthinkable.
They're all key campaigning issues, to be honest with you, and they are things that grassroots supporters can get involved in. The more people backing the stuff, the more noise there is, the better it is.
That's good. Well, so I've got a kind of all-encompassing question that really involves everybody. So, Jim, Kat, Ken, Sam, you can all weigh in on this. And this is a question I've posed to several of the guests we've had on before, Daniel, Julie, Martin, Adam. They've all weighed in on the question. It really centers on the new American supporter and how they're viewed in the UK. And it kind of goes back to whether it's a misnomer, misconception, it's reality. And I speak from experience, because when I lived in the UK, I kind of viewed Americans as brash and loud, and you kind of shied away from them. And I think that kind of bias is still there. However, the UK is just in love with American culture, whether it be TV, sports, etc. So now there's this new American supporter that has latched onto the Premier League. It's everywhere in the US. The fact that NBC screens every single game live, which is outstanding, because that doesn't happen in the UK. We have it in our living rooms, on social media, and so there's been this new American sports fan. But I also view the average American sports fan as someone who has a multitude of teams that they follow, whether it's college sports, pro sports, and now you're adding in professional football teams, our football, so it could be someone from Spain or Germany or from the UK. And are they viewed as Johnny-come-lately and the bandwagon hoppers because they haven't made, in our example, Tottenham Hotspur top of their list? And this is where Ken can chime in, because as a relatively new supporter, Spurs have come from the middle of the pack and are top of all the local teams he follows. Is the American supporter still viewed with a lot of skepticism because they're somewhat plastic?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
I think we need to recognise that the English Premier League is a global game. So we want and we welcome global fans. I certainly don't think that the American audience is viewed as, Johnny-come-latelys or in a sceptical way, to be perfectly honest with you. There is nothing stopping an American fan really getting involved with their football team. Distance shouldn't be an issue in this age of interconnectivity. Conversely, I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan. So hello to Seattle and Jim over there. And I've only started supporting them since they won Super Bowl. So I am completely a glory plastic 12 as it was. But I'm all over it. They can't give me enough stuff. I am all over their Twitter feed, all over their Instagram, all over everything, and I soak it up. And I will sit up till 4 in the morning watching them.
I've seen your tweets.
I've got an NFL Game Pass. Seriously, I'm obsessed.
I know. I'm like, God, can't go to bed.
Exactly.
And it's really late because it's Seattle. It's West Coast.
And she's up at 4 in the morning, tweeting and doing all that stuff, and I'm waking up at 4 in the morning to go to the pub to watch Spurs.
So it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just a different sport, and I wouldn't presume that all the 12s over in Seattle thought that I was completely out of order by sitting in London and supporting them. So it's, it cuts both ways. We recognise it's a global game, and we need that fan base. And I think it's fantastic that with players like Friedel and Dempsey and Yedlin, we can connect an awful lot more with that American fan base as well.
Yeah,
well, there was, sorry Ken, there was also something I kind of uncovered this week, and I'm certainly not going to call them out, and it's not a criticism, but it was on someone's social media page.
I'm looking at it now. I know who you're talking about here.
Spurs only care about you if you're American. And that kind of upset me a little bit, because obviously I'm British, I live in the US, and I like to think I've got a very balanced approach on this, but Katrina, you're there in the midst of this with the trust and the relationship with the club.
Yeah. Spurs marketing arm do things for Spurs marketing arm's reasons. It's not always the most subtle. And I think that's kind of what's rubbed a few of the domestic UK-based fans up the wrong way. There was a period when literally that Twitter account was just pumping out stuff for the American audience and kind of ignoring everybody who was in the UK and match-going fans. They've got a new guy in there running their social media now who I think's doing a cracking job. So that's kind of neutralised, and I think everyone gets a fair crack of the whip, to be utterly honest with you. But the club were very open and very honest about America being a massive market for them. They needed to crack that market, and in fairness, I think they've done it. So that's, kudos to the board there at Tottenham and their Marcoms team.
And that's great. So, Jim, how do you view this? Obviously, being in America and in the media, and having obviously your experiences over in the UK, how do you see the new fan over here with the coverage of the Premier League and other leagues around the world?
Well, I believe that fans are the same everywhere, and that you care about your local team most of all. And that's what's always sort of intrigued me with the Premier League, is that there are fans here who care so much about a sport played, or not the sport, but a league played, on the other side of the ocean, and plus on the other side of the continent, if we're out here in Seattle. And yet the people really do care. And I with Cameron saying, if you're willing to stay up late at night to watch a game, if you're willing to get up early in the morning to go to the pub to watch a game for a team that is nowhere near you, that you may never see in your life, that to me is showing that you really care. And that is showing that you must be considered among the true fans. If you're going out of your way to follow them, then you are really showing your true colors, which hopefully aren't red.
So Jim, another point on that, with the emergence of the sport and the exposure in this country, and we can even talk about Major League Soccer, how do you see the sport competing with the big four in the US? Do you see a turning point with, you look at young kids today and they all seem to be wearing soccer jerseys and not wearing baseball jerseys or football jerseys, and do you think in future generations, maybe one or two, that soccer's going to be knocking on the Big Four's door or passing them?
Yeah, I think it's growing. Like here in Seattle, the Sounders are incredibly popular among their fans, and I've always wondered whether it's a fan base and they go to the game, they go to the match, and they sell out the stadium, and I haven't seen the ratings, and the ratings outside that. Are people who aren't at the game, at the match, are they watching it as much? But I think it's going to grow. I think it could become more popular than, say, hockey. But as far as it's going to increase in popularity. What's always been sort of interesting is that kids have been playing soccer for decades.
Ever, yeah.
But then when they get to high school age, they sort of stop playing it. And then they get into the other sports, because those other sports can lead to possible, very unlikely, but possible careers. And now, if the MLS grows and there's possibility of getting a career there, will people start keeping playing that rather than dropping it? And that'll be really interesting to see what happens. right now, I mean, people are always saying, "Oh, baseball's dying, but whenever you walk down the street, you see people in baseball caps everywhere. Anytime I go anywhere in the world, I see them. If I was at the Australian Open and I saw